I just want to say that Marina Mabrey is a bum, and I own her. She shoved me like that was going to change the score.
Obvious ejection. An obvious ejection. Marina Mabrey, look in the mirror. The reason that you're going to have any money before the end of your career is number 2-2.
The moment everyone was waiting for finally happened. After weeks of letting Marina Mabrey and Mabrey Sheldon get away with anything on the court, the WNBA finally handed out suspensions. But let's not pretend this was about justice. It wasn't. This was about panic. The league watched its golden goose nearly get her career ended on live television and suddenly realized they might have just destroyed their own.
How do you not eject her? How do you not eject her? And that leads to the end of the game.
Cash cow. The real reason these suspensions happened isn't because the WNBA suddenly grew a conscience. It's because Caitlin Clark is single-handedly keeping this league alive, and they finally figured out that protecting their most valuable player might be the smartest business decision.
She's the reason the WNBA just won the lottery. Without Caitlin Clark, nobody cares about any of these players or the league.
They could make let's talk numbers. When Clark was out with injury, ratings dropped 55%. That's not a dip, that's a nosedive off a cliff. The moment she returned, viewership didn't just recover, it spiked 55%.
WNBA, largest viewership in WNBA history.
Wow, that's season average. Clark isn't just a basketball player. She's a one-woman economic engine for an entire league. The game that started all of this chaos, it pulled in 2.2 million viewers on ABC, making it the third highest rated game in WNBA history. What should have been another forgettable Tuesday night suddenly became must-see television because Clark was on the floor. And how did Mabrey and Sheldon use that spotlight? By trying to turn the court into a crime scene. These two have been targeting Clark like she personally insulted their family. The eye pokes, the cheap shots, the after-the-whistle antics. It was obvious to anyone watching that this wasn't just basketball. It was personal. The most blatant moment was Sheldon's eye poke. She wound up like she was throwing a punch, made no attempt at the ball, and raked her fingers across Clark's face hard enough to leave marks. Yet somehow the officials only called it a flagrant one. As if that wasn't enough, Mabrey decided to escalate the situation to WWE levels. She charged full body into a defenseless Clark, who was still holding her injured eye, sending her flying into an official. It looked more like a linebacker trying to break up a pass than anything resembling basketball. The impact was so violent that the entire arena froze, wondering if Clark had just suffered a serious injury. And while the refs stood there like statues, one player actually showed up.
With the steal. Sheldon goes coast to coast. And here we got another.
When it mattered, Sophie Cunningham. She saw the chaos, saw the officials doing nothing, saw Clark being hunted, and decided enough was enough. She went straight at Sheldon like a debt collector. Sure, she got ejected, but she did what teammates are supposed to do. She protected her star. Cunningham put her body on the line and sent a message that echoed across the league. If you want to target our best player, you will have to go through all of us.
There is no woman who should negate mentioning Caitlin Clark and what Caitlin Clark is doing for the game.
The type of energy that builds championship culture, and Sophie cemented herself as a leader that night. The contrast couldn't have been more obvious. While the officials were clueless and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was nowhere to be found, one player took responsibility and showed what leadership actually looks like. Now, the league is trying to frame these suspensions as proof they care about player safety. But let's be honest, this wasn't about safety, it was about survival. Behind the scenes, they were staring at their financial projections and panicking. What happens if Clark suffers a serious injury? What if she gets tired of being a constant target and bolts overseas, where she'd be treated like royalty? For a league that was struggling before she even arrived, the financial fallout would be catastrophic.
So to the Indiana Fever again, you need to go get you someone with some muscle. Somebody that's coming to the defense of Caitlin Clark. It shouldn't be Caitlin Clark.
And let's be real, Mabrey's stat line means nothing if she's out here throwing cheap shots. 9 assists don't erase reckless play designed to injure. Sheldon can talk all day about toughness and competitive fire, but there's a clear line between playing hard and playing dirty. These two crossed it, and for once, the league couldn't look the other way. The fan reaction only turned up the pressure. Engagement exploded to levels normally reserved for playoff games. Comment sections on every basketball post were flooded with outraged Clark supporters demanding accountability. Social media was impossible to escape. Every scroll was a reminder of the league's failure to protect its biggest star, This entire fiasco exposed the WNBA's greatest weakness, its inability to protect its own interests. The warning signs were there for weeks. Clark had been taking increasingly aggressive fouls, and the league chose to ignore it. Instead of stepping in early, they let the situation escalate until it nearly spiraled into disaster. Only when the financial survival of the league was on the line did they act. So yes, Mabrey and Sheldon finally got suspended. But don't mistake that for justice. This was damage control. The WNBA didn't wake up one morning and decide to value integrity. They woke up and realized that if they lost Caitlin Clark, they might lose everything. The officiating had been inconsistent and blatantly biased against Caitlin Clark, while the league stayed silent. They had multiple chances to step in and address the issue before it exploded into a full-blown crisis. For weeks, referees allowed players to get away with fouls against Clark that never would have been tolerated for others. Hard contact that should have drawn flagrant calls was brushed off as playoff basketball or just physical defense. The double standard became so obvious that even casual fans started pointing it out. Now the league wants people to believe these suspensions prove they care about player safety. Please, if player safety had been the priority, they would have acted months ago when the targeting first started. If fair officiating mattered, they would have trained their ref to call game consistently, no matter which player was involved. Instead, they ignored warning signs and let things escalate until they were staring at a full-on controversy they could no longer sweep under the rug. The implications are massive. This mess has put the WNBA under a microscope like never before. Every game involving Clark will now be analyzed down to the smallest detail. Every questionable call will be dissected frame by frame. Every hard foul will be treated as a test of whether the league has truly changed or is just pretending. In the court of public opinion, the WNBA has essentially put itself on probation. What happens next will determine everything. Will officiating finally improve? Will the constant targeting of Clark actually stop? Will the league truly protect its biggest stars moving forward? Or will all of this be forgotten in a few weeks when the next controversy grabs the headlines? The pressure has never been higher. Clark's fans are watching every move. Media outlets are circling. Social media is primed to erupt at the first sign of continued bias or another blown call. The league has painted itself into a corner, and the only way out is to deliver better officiating and real accountability. For Clark herself, this changes everything. She is now officially the most protected player in the league, which, frankly, should have been the case from the start. Any future attempt to target her will be met with immediate and severe